From Washington, the Mclaughlin Group, the American original. For over 2 decades, the sharpest minds, best sources, hardest talk.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
Investing takes perspective. It comes from navigating up and down markets for 60 years, spotting opportunities at home and abroad. Global investing from Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
If, for such a small word, it packs a wallop. If I live to 100, if Social Security isn't enough, if my heart gets broken, if she says yes. We believe IF should never hold you back. IF should be managed with a plan that builds on what you already have. Together, we can create a personal safety net, a launching pad for all those brilliant ifs in the middle of life. You can call on our expertise and get guarantees for the if in life. After all, we're MetLife.
Issue 1, political potpourri item. Speaker Nancy Pelosi then, minority leader now. Why do the Democrats keep their leader after the disastrous results of the election 2 weeks ago?
Because I'm an effective leader, because we got the job done on health care and Wall Street reform and consumer protections, the list goes on. Because they know that I'm the person that can attract the resources, both intellectual and otherwise, to take us to victory, because I have done it before. So,
Democrat Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives until January when Republican John Boehner takes over, has landed on her feet already, moving from House Speaker to Minority Leader. She continues to be the #1 Democrat in the House. She defeated her single challenger, North Carolina Congressman Heath Shuler, 150 to 43. Question, does Nancy Pelosi's victory mean that Democrats won't compromise? That they want to stick to their progressive agenda? Sometimes called what, Pat? Progressive agenda?
Liberalism.
Liberalism. Pat Buchanan.
John, the reason she's the minority leader is because Steny Hoyer didn't challenge her. He decided not to. Secondly, she has been an extremely effective leader for the Democratic Party. She got through everything Obama wanted and then some. And the Democrats, of course, have defied basically the country, which has voted to go in another direction. But it tells us, I think, pretty much exactly what you said, John. Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party saw that John Boehner got to be Speaker of the House by leading the party of no to Obama's spending programs. Now they're going to be the party of no, Nancy Pelosi leading it against the budget cuts, and I think it's an effective strategy.
Helena.
Well, it was a foregone conclusion that she would win the post because the Democratic caucus is smaller and it's more liberal, and the challenge came from a conservative blue dog. The numbers weren't there for a credible alternative. She's there because she's a fighter and because she's going to hold the ground that President Obama seems too often willing to concede. And the effort to repeal health care will be fought in the House, and I think she's going to be a strong leader on that. The health care reform bill is as much her accomplishment as it is the president's. And she's going to count on the Republicans to overdo it, and we're already seeing signs of that. They don't want to extend unemployment benefits, but they want to extend tax breaks for the rich. So it's going to be fertile territory for liberalism the next 2
Michael,
years.
what do you think? Does this show that they are unwilling to compromise?
Well, first of all, there are a lot of Democrats who would like to extend all of the Bush tax cuts. Let's get this straight. The party that ran on change in 2008 will be led for the next 2 years by Obama, Biden, Pelosi, and Reid. Not exactly a lot of change in there, and not exactly a lot of hope either. The American electorate a couple of weeks ago elected a wholesale rejection of what Nancy Pelosi stands for. That is that big government, big spending agenda. And to have her as the remaining face of the Democrats, at least in the House, and you've got Harry Reid on the other side in the Congress, is a huge gift to the Republicans. Because what's going to happen is the GOP in the House of Representatives is going to be the real engine of change. Every week, they're going to put out new bills on repealing Obamacare, spending cuts, tax cuts or tax issues, and they're going to force the Democrats in the Senate to either stall it or kill it, or if it does make it to Obama's desk, he's going to kill it. So very effectively, they're going to be able to turn the tables and make the Democrats the party of no.
Democrats will become the party of no. Anna Fifield, are you with us on this?
I think that Nancy Pelosi, even though she's come back, she's won, she's got her mandate from her caucus, she is going to be a much weaker leader this time around. Sure, she's an impressive fundraiser, she's been a very powerful speaker, but it's going to be difficult for her to corral her caucus in the same way that she has before, when you've got all of these lawmakers now openly challenging her and saying that she lost them the election. Yeah. I also think this is very difficult for President Obama, because how is he going to compromise and show that he's making a midterm course correction of things when, like Monica says, he's got all the same faces still there.
John,
Interesting.
I'm not sure for this reason. Look, these budget cuts, I mean, the Tea Party people and everybody, the country voted for them, no doubt about it. But you start going after Social Security and Medicare and unemployment insurance and some of these other things. I don't know that that's the Republicans, once they start the actual cutting and bleeding takes place, it's going to be all that popular.
Right. Okay, item. Earmarks banned. Both the Senate and the House Republicans voted to ban earmarks this week. Earmarks has become a technical term for provisions allocated for special interests or pet projects. Collectively, earmarks are sometimes referred to as pork, as in pork barrel politics, the kind that Barack Obama knows well from Chicago politics.
In the rush to get things done, had to sign a bunch of bills that had earmarks in, which was contrary to what I had talked about.
Question, why did the House and Senate Republicans move so quickly on banning earmarks? Eleanor.
Well, I think the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, said it exactly right, that they have been abused and they've become a symbol of wasteful government spending, even though they amount to a fraction of the overspending the government is guilty of. They've become this potent symbol. Ultimately, the bridge to nowhere, Ted Stevens, is what everybody thinks of. And you have the Tea Party caucus that corralled the votes, went around the Republican leadership, and forced Mitch McConnell to do a total about-face on these earmarks. And so it's a fascinating display of the intra-party fights within the Republican Party of the same old Republican leadership trying to incorporate the new Tea Party.
Let me ask you this: are earmarks as bad as we think they are,
well,
or as we say they are?
As Eleanor points out, earmarks represent less than 1% of the total federal budget. So, in terms of actual money relative to the budget, we aren't talking about a lot, but what they are important symbolically, because they essentially are the gateway drug to more and more spending. And the reason that the GOP did this, first on the House side, and then Mitch McConnell was dragged kicking and screaming to an earmark ban on the Senate side, is because they finally got the message that the American people want the spending reined in and cut. They've had enough. In fact, a lot of candidates who went back to their districts and their states this last time around and said, look at all the pork I've brought home. Don't you love it? Most of the American people said, actually, no, we don't.
I think the earmarks are the victim of a unnecessary rage or disappointment. Earmarks, if you build a bridge, that bridge is going to affect the surrounding area, maybe for miles ahead. It's not going to be only in your state, barring the vaudeville that went on in Alaska, which I made. Did you have a hand in that?
Well, no, I was up there, though. It was Gravina Island,
when you were
John.
Campaigning for president?
They should have built that bridge going across that
so barring that,
part of the Pacific Ocean was a
earmarks in individual states have consequences, whether it's an electrical grid, which could feed a surrounding area beyond the state limits. So why the exasperation over earmarks? But let's move on. Okay, the GOP snubs Obama. Congressional Republicans said they were too busy to accept President Obama's invitation to a bipartisan leadership meeting Thursday of last week. The meeting would mark the first time President Obama meets with new leaders since the midterm elections. The White House postponed the meeting until November the 30th to accommodate the GOP's schedule. Question, was President Obama trying to lure the GOP into a snare? And did they dodge the trap? Anna Pfeiffer?
No, I don't think he was trying to lure them into a trap. I think the president is quite genuine. He's been talking all this time about bipartisanship and compromise and things. I think he's actually been quite foolish in a way to say that so openly that he's ready to compromise. Where's his leverage going to come when this meeting, actually happens?
Right, and Senator McConnell was complaining that he'd never really met with the president, hadn't gotten any phone calls, and now he'd gotten 2 phone calls, as though they were welcoming this. They're intimidated by the Tea Party. The Tea Party doesn't want them to do any engagement across the aisle with the president or any other Democrat. And with all the Tea Party folks in town, they postponed this meeting. I think they're a bunch of cowards,
they
frankly.
have to get their ducks in a row, John. Republicans do.
Cowards.
Get all the ducks in a row. You don't want to walk down there and Obama say, we're all going to work together. I'm going to compromise. Here you go. And be on the spot. They want to get their strategy down. They want to get their ducks in a row. They want to get together with the Tea Party, and they want to go in with a coordinated position. And I think they were smart to avoid this meeting.
Okay, gropes and grapes.
Do I understand the sensitivities of people? Yes. If you're asking, am I going to change the policies? No.
The new TSA security policy, full body x-rays. If passengers opt out, they get full body pat-downs instead of the x-rays. These measures would have prevented the failed underwear bomber, it is said, his would-be attack on Christmas Day 2009. The TSA says privacy concerns are overblown. Currently, 68 airports nationwide have 358 body scanners at a cost of about $30 million each. Question: should celebrities and political figures be the most concerned about the abuse of body scanning images by the TSA? Could they wind up on the net, like Sarah Palin and the All Together on the net?
Are you worried about yourself, John McLaughlin, winding up on the net?
Well,
look, what we have here is the Obama-Napolitano peep show police state. The great irony is that after 9/11, President Bush put in a series of counterterrorism measures, including Guantanamo Bay, rendition, indefinite detention, and warrantless wiretapping. He put in all kinds of things related to the Patriot Act. And the left went bananas, screaming that every measure was a violation of privacy and a civil right. Excuse me, let me just finish my point. That every little thing he did was a civil rights emergency. Now you actually have a civil rights emergency in this incredible violation of privacy. And I will say, rather than scanning everybody on this panel, why don't we direct the scanning and the profiling to the people who are actually trying to kill us?
There are some questions about the machines and maybe the radiation they put out. I think those are genuine concerns. But you're seen like a stick figure somewhere off by someone else. You're not identified. I mean, the privacy concerns, I think, are totally overblown.
Yeah, what about Amendment 4, the right of the people to be secure in their persons? Houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
Maybe we ought to worry about CT x-rays and so forth. Never can tell when somebody might put that out. Look, this has been done in response to specific airline threats. Maybe it's an overreaction, but I think the fact that you're going to be seen, not identifiable, in an office somewhere else by somebody who can't connect it. I mean, what are we concealing here?
Anna Fifield, is there anything like this going on in New Zealand? I know that you're living here now, but is there anything going on in New Zealand or in Australia similar to this?
Only if you're trying to fly to the US. Then you have to go through a lot of rigmarole, but otherwise, no.
Do they have these thermal detectors or electronic detectors?
No, they don't. They do in the UK now, and there's been a lot of controversy. Maybe you remember a few years ago, Diana Ross actually slapped one of the security officials when she was getting groped, as she would say, going through. So they've had this in the UK for a while. But I think that, I mean...
You think this is a pervert's refuge now?
No, I don't. I think they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. If somebody gets through, if they'll be accused of security.
Well, what about the cross-gender? In other words,
it is an opportunity for real mischief. For heaven's sakes, it really is appalling.
You're against the scanners?
Well, the scanners I can understand, quite frankly, but I think, your Sarah Palin example is a good one. Some jerk will take a photo of some gal like that, and put it on the internet and stuff like
Yeah.
it is a real invasion of privacy.
If you reject both the scan and the
Then
pat
you don't
down,
fly.
there's an $11,000 fine.
Yes, and you could get arrested and you have to go to court. But instead of
I think you
scanning
ought to let 'em
everybody,
walk
why don't we
away.
do what the Israelis do, which is behavioral profiling,
This is
so
the-
that grandma doesn't have to go through the naked
Monica,
I don't
scanner.
want to. I don't
Israelis
want
only
to be
got
too
very few
scholarly.
flights.
I don't want to be too scholarly
But we're
here.
subjecting everybody to these outrages.
And embarrass you, Buchanan. But here is one of the greatest books published since the Bible. It's called the 9/11 Commission Report. And in here you'll find a lot of detail about securing identification through permitting inspectors to focus on greater risks, the daily blah, blah, blah.
Did
But
you
anyway,
know-
they recommend this kind of scanning.
Did you know
But
what
they want an iris scan that cannot
But
be
John-
duplicated by anyone else in the world. Matching
That's
a
a good,
car.
I think that's a good idea. But look what happened out in Saudi Arabia as we were talking. This guy put an explosive into his body cavity, his rear end, walked in and tried to blow up a Saudi minister. with
Well,
it.
you're not going to get everybody. Exit question. Who won the week? Who won the week? The Democrats or the Republicans? One word answer. We got to get out.
I'm going to give it to Obama.
Eleanor.
Democrats.
The Republicans.
Democrats.
Democrats. Issue 2. Another front. Yemen.
Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula is a group that we've been following for quite some time. This is something that we've worked very closely with Yemeni officials to go against, and we need to find these individuals who are responsible, bring them to justice.
Yemen is a country in the Middle East that is roughly the size of Nevada. It has a coast on the Gulf of Aden and lies under Saudi Arabia, our ally. The United States is focusing big on Yemen. The goal is to dismantle the Islamic terrorist organization Al-Qaeda in Yemen. Earlier this month, Al-Qaeda in Yemen sent explosives to the United States. They were inserted into printer cartridges. The explosives were destined for synagogues in Chicago. Thanks to a tip-off from Saudi Arabia, they were intercepted by U.S. security, some in London, some in Dubai. Behind the attempt was Anwar al-Awlaki, the radical Muslim cleric who was revered by Islamic terrorists, including U.S.-born Nidal Hassan, psychiatrist who killed 13 of his comrades at Fort Hood, Texas. Al-Awlaki was also an imam at a mosque in Falls Church, Virginia at the time of the 9/11 attacks. He fled to Yemen in 2006, where he is now specifically designated by President Obama for assassination. The U.S. military is building several military bases in Yemen and augmenting intelligence operatives. The Yemeni government welcomes increased surveillance, but is said to be hesitant about U.S. military operatives in country. Directly across the Red Sea from Yemen is the Republic of Djibouti. The U.S. has some 1,500 troops stationed there. Troops were dispatched to Djibouti in 2002 to track al-Qaeda operatives and oversee development projects. Question, is the operational center, of al-Qaeda now in Yemen? Monica.
Largely, yes. After 9/11, the United States-led forces went into Afghanistan and largely disrupted al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. They had to find another base of operations. Some of them went into Iraq. We've been able to largely dismantle al-Qaeda in Iraq. And now they've found this base in Yemen, which is essentially a failed state. There's a huge problem between the north and the south, so it's very disjointed, very weak central leadership. And al-Qaeda has found a real home there. I think we run into a real problem, though, when we talk in the West about the al-Qaeda threat. We tend to talk about it in geographic terms, Afghanistan, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, when we should be talking about it in ideological terms, because this kind of radicalization is everywhere.
Yemen is not
been destined for assassination, named for assassination by President Obama. Does anything go on like that in your part, in any other part of the world that you live in? You lived quite a few areas. Do you think designating someone for assassination,
Right.
and he's a citizen of the United States, by the way, al-Awlaki.
Yeah.
Sure.
You think that's okay?
No, I don't think it's okay. I mean, he is an American citizen, like you say. It's very bizarre that they would target somebody in this.
You know, the ACLU has mounted a case against this, even though it's distasteful for them probably to do.
You know, John, Maggie Thatcher had the IRA folks assassinated, and the Israelis assassinated the guys involved in the Munich massacre, and a lot of
You
folks.
mean by order?
Oh, sure. That was right out of Mossad, sure. Yeah. But let me talk about Yemen. That is one of the most tribalized societies in the world. It's 25 million. The population's going to double, John, in 40 years. It's going to break in half, south and north. They got these Houthi rebels in the north who are Shia as opposed to Sunni. The problem with the Americans is, it's the old problem. Do you go in and do we kill the guys and reduce Al-Qaeda, or do we do collateral damage and create more Al-Qaeda than we kill? It's the problem.
Now, Brzezinski has an answer to that. And he says the more we resist, the more their recruitment goes up.
If you do collateral damage, that's exactly, it's tribalized. The tribe will say, we're going to pay those SOBs back.
Well, Yemen is not new on our radar screen. I think the USS Cole bombers, when Clinton was president, came out of Yemen. So this is a long-standing problem. And there's a big Afghanistan review coming up at the White House. They ought to look at all our whole strategy of propping up governments that are not exactly with us, but they're not against us, and where the population doesn't like them. And that's what we're doing in Yemen. And then we pretend we're fighting terrorists.
Isn't there a vagrant odor here of designated assassination trumping human rights?
We're at war.
Well, look,
we're at war.
To Obama's,
we're at war. That's the answer. We're at war. Are we in that kind of a war?
We're dealing with enemy combatants. We're dealing with terrorists that don't wear a uniform of any given nation. So to Obama's great credit, I disagree with Anna on this. I agree with the assassination order. And the other very effective thing he has done is escalate the drone attacks, not just in Afghanistan and Pakistan, but also targeting in Yemen.
There's a cost,
so he's functioning as commander-in-chief. Mm-hmm. He's not functioning as, so to speak, as president. As commander-in-chief, he's ordering it because we are at war.
John, sure. We need to look
does that get us out of the smell?
No, but I think they need to look more at the situation in Yemen. This is a very good cover for the president of Yemen here, who's fighting all these wars, in the north and the south, secessionist movement. This provides a lot of cover for him to put down his own political foes, I think, rather than fighting Al-Qaeda itself.
A lot of money. John, the United States, assassinated Yamamoto, you remember, in World War II, and the Brits sent in those checks to assassinate Heydrich in Prague. In wartime, people do those things.
All right, we've resolved all of these Yemen matters. Issue 3, royal engagement.
We met at university at St Andrews, and we were friends for over a year first, and it just sort of blossomed from then on. We just spent more time with each other and had a good giggle, had lots of fun.
It was a total shock when it came, and very excited.
Euphoria rules in the UK. 28-year-old Prince William of England will marry 28-year-old Kate Middleton. What explains the American fascination with the royals, Eleanor?
Well, first of all, they've been together for like 9 years, so they're not rushing into it. And I think it looks like a fairly stable union. And I think Americans are fascinated by the monarchy because they do everything to such success. But given the hard times that the Brits are going through, I think they're going to be careful about not spending lavishly, and it's going to be a great tourist bonanza because Americans and people all over the world are fascinated by this family.
Okay, let me try this. Euphoria is not universal in Great Britain, however. The question. 1 out of 5 Brits says the monarchy doesn't cut it anymore. In fact, they want to eliminate the monarchy and replace it with an elected head of state and a codified constitution. These people call themselves, get this, Republicans. No kidding. This is why British Republicans want to abolish the monarchy. 1, monarchy fosters elitism. It grants power for unearned heredity, not earned merit. 2, monarchy answers to no one. 3, monarchy grants power to the Prime Minister and Privy Council, and that power allows either or both to circumvent Parliament. 4, monarchy is expensive. Prince Charles and Lady Diana's wedding cost 30 million English pounds, about 47 million US dollars. The William-Kate wedding will likely cost over 60 million US dollars. In addition, the royal family ongoing budget costs taxpayers 40 million English pounds a year, or $64 million in US currency, not including security and lost revenue from tax-free properties owned by the royal family. Altogether, this brings the total to the equivalent of about 300 million US dollars for the Brits to sustain the British monarchy. Question, is the monarchy A, civic blessing, B, the opiate of the people, or C, an atavistic throwback? Anna Fifield.
I'd say it's all three. For the British government right now, it's a blessing, make no mistake, because they're making all these swinging budget cuts. All of a sudden, there's a very welcome distraction to the news there with this wedding. For the people, I think it is an opiate. Even, if it's like this here, imagine what it's like in the UK. People are going crazy right now. They've even started printing commemorative plates and things for the wedding.
You have any history over there?
Yes, I'm a subject of this queen, and so
Were you a Republican? Are you a Republican?
I'm a Republican with a small r, definitely. Right. So I would.
You're against monarchy.
I am. I fall into the third camp. Look at how much money that they cost the taxpayer, and what do they do? What purpose do they serve apart from being tabloid fodder?
But that's Republican as in guillotine. Excuse me.
What?
No, sure it is.
I
what
think
is
they
it?
should play a much more
What are you objecting to the term Republican being used by those who are anti-monarchy?
John, you have a genetic problem with the monarchy. It dates back to the potato famine and everything.
No, I love the monarchy because it's great TV.
It's got history, it's got tradition, it's the personification of the British nation. It's got an enormous amount to it. What do you want to make it? Another dull democracy?
The monarchy puts bread on your TV table. You know that.
It does.
You can be invited to do what you're doing now.
I'm an empire man, John.
The monarchy is great.
It seems to me that Kate Middleton is a better subject for adulation than Bristol Palin is on Dancing with the Stars. Oh. So we have our own sort of worship here in the States. And so every society is entitled to someone to look up to.
The monarchy does.
Even if it's silly. $300 million a year.
Well, the monarchy does cost the British taxpayers a lot of money, but it also brings in a lot of money into the UK through tourism and the rest. And I think our own American fascination goes back to the fact that we broke away from the British monarchy.
Where is the coronation going to occur? Westminster Cathedral.
Well, Kate Middleton
and Americans can't wait to see it.
Yeah, she was seen touring Westminster last week.
That the UK is just one big period drama. I think that's why Americans love it so much.
Talking about his money.
Yeah, you've got to look at this through the lens of capitalism. Predictions, Pat, 5 seconds.
Berlusconi will be out of power by year's end, if not by the end of the month.
Illinois.
Republicans will quietly defund the Office of Congressional Ethics that was established by Nancy Pelosi.
Monica.
The Republican governors, especially the newly elected ones in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Maine, will lead the charge against Obamacare.
Anna Fifield.
Tim Pawlenty will be the first to declare he's running for the Republican primary, and he'll do it by the end of the year.
I predict that when the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon decides to leave his post, his successor will be President of Chile, Sebastián Piñera. Bye-bye.
Geico, committed to providing service to its auto insurance customers for over 70 years. More information on auto insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO, any time of the day or night.
There's a world of investment opportunities out there. Spotting them takes experts on the ground, assessing potential firsthand. Templeton, a pioneer in global investing for over 50 years. Gain from our perspective.